All right, so you've seen the first video on building your internal structure with the black wire. Now we're going to take the second step and wrap your figure with the silver wire. You want to have the silver wire as straight as possible as you work with it. After you uncoil it, just do your best to sort of straighten it as you go so that there aren't a lot of bends and bumps. If you find that you need to undo something along the way, you will need to do your best to straighten out the bends that you have from the first wrapping. We're going to start wrapping around the shoulders. We're needing to anchor the aluminum wire in the torso. So if you can stick it through in there a little bit, and much like we did the shoulders, you can start with a figure 8, and that should have it nice and solid. Once we do that, we're going to do the arms first, okay? You're going to want to wrap once around the shoulder here, and after we have wrapped a figure 8 around the shoulders, we're going to wrap once around one shoulder. Then we're going to work our way down the arm. So the difficult thing about this, as we've done this a few times with other art classes, is to remember to leave a gap. Now you could put something in there, like a pencil if you wanted to give yourself something to wrap against. The aluminum wire is pretty flexible, so it shouldn't be too hard to kind of leave it a little bit. So 3 or 4 wraps to about what the elbow is going to be, right? And then if you want to wrap it once tighter where the elbow is going to be, then you can again come out again. And remember that a forearm, right, is a little bit bigger and then it goes narrower. So think about how that might work with the gap that you're leaving. And it should be a slightly smaller gap than what you had on the bicep area. We always want to be thinking about proportions as we go. And the other thing is you want to do your best to line up, see if I have to undo this a little bit, best to line up your wraps so that they're organized and really going around the arm, right? And then when you get to the wrist, we're going to wrap one more tight, and then we're going to come up in a straight line. So this is where sometimes people get a little bit lost. We wrapped around coming down with the gaps. We're going to then go up in a straight line. So that's the line of the forearm. And then we're going to wrap tight again at the elbow. And then another straight line up the top of the arm. So this is like the upper part of the shoulder, right? And depending on how your gesture might need this to be reconfigured as a bicep, right, we can deal with that a little bit later. As you come up to the shoulder, make another twist around, but it doesn't have to be all the way, and you can go across in a figure 8. Okay, so now we have this arm, right, looking like an arm. Imagine that, little hands. And we're going to go do the other side, same. Okay, so we're going to go around the shoulder once, and then maybe 3 or 4 turns to get down to the elbow. And the same thing, we're going to go straight line, and again, think about that as the top of the forearm, right, to the elbow, tight, and then up over the shoulder, and now we have 2 arms. Look at that. 2 arms, very exciting. Next, if we want to anchor that, we can just go once around the neck. It's fine. And then we can come down. We are going to do a little bit on the body. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of around and around. And remember, the torso should have a slight angle to it. It's going to have sort of a little more bulk at the top in the shoulders, and then come in a little bit more narrowly, and then we're going to put some weight on the hip area. This is maybe the hardest part to leave the gap because there's nothing to go against, right? So it's just a big old gap of air. Think of this like putting in ribs, right? We want to have some bulk here with mainly air. And if you end up sort of making sure you've got a couple of fingers in there. Okay, we're getting some ribs. There we go. How's that look? Okay. And again, remember they're going to get a little bit narrower as it comes down. We're going to bulk this out later, so this is really just a means to get the beginning in there. Then, when we get to the hips, we're going to do a slightly tighter wrap here. Again, we're going to do the same figure eight kind of thing that we did up top on the shoulders, right? So a little bit of the figure eight action. And then we're going to do that bigger because there's some girth to the hips that are going to give it weight. Oops, my ribs are all collapsing. There we go. And we'll need this to help orient the body in space with your gesture. So do a couple of big gaping figure eights, right, around and back. Make sure you go around the front and the back. There we go, a couple of these. And then you can go around just over one hip and then underneath and go around once on the other hip. Okay, so this ends up looking a little bit messy, but you should have a couple of angles here that if you were thinking like the skeleton in your biology class, you'd have like the pelvic girdle that is that part of the body. Okay, so that's more or less what we're going for. So let's see how that goes. Then we're going to go down a leg and back up, much like we did the arm. Okay, so we're going to anchor it at the top of the leg so it doesn't go all over the place. So one tight one. And then we're going to add some bulk. And again, you can put your finger in there or a pencil or a marker. Probably a pencil or a marker would be better for me. But then you can, again, 3 or 4. Maybe I can do 4. Let's do 4. And then we're going to do a tight one at the knee, right? So you can see how we have a bit of a thigh there. And it'll go wider to narrower, although it'll stay pretty wide. Should stay pretty wide. That looks really short for a thigh. I think I needed to do 4. So do a little bit of evaluation as you go. It is so much easier to fix it as you're going than it is to come back and try to fix it later. Because then you just have so much more to undo. A lot. So let's add another one in there. And this is what I mean, like this gets really wrinkly. So take a second to bend this straight. All you need to do is find the bump, push up, and then straighten it back out. Okay, so it's a little bit of back and forth, but you can straighten that right out with just pushing on it. You don't need pliers. Another bump. And then we can do the knee a little bit lower. And then the same thing. Now again, this will be a little bit bigger at the top, just like the calf muscle is a little bit bigger. Push the knee a little bit. Oop, more together. There we go. And again, what are we going to do? Get narrower when we hit the ankle, right? And then get a tight wrap in there. So you can see how this is pretty wide. This one had a few more smaller ones. This figure's a little smaller. 2 different years demoing, right? 2 different figures. Work with what you have. Then on the way back up, just like we had the straight line here that created the arm, we're going to do the same thing coming back up the leg, except the first part of the leg is on the back part of the leg. So if your foot is pointing forward, right, up, the calf will happen on the back. Huh, funny how that works. If you take a look at your leg, you have a calf muscle. Bump that out and then go around the knee again. So go around the knee. And that is your calf muscle and your leg, and all of a sudden it starts to look like a leg, right? Okay. Then similarly, you're going to go up the front of the quad, right? So like that. This will help with orienting your leg in space when you have your gesture that we're going to do the posing in class, right? So that's going to come up over the front. And again, just like we anchored it off before, we're going to anchor it here, except we're going to go under and over and do that little figure 8 thing, and then anchor it on the other side at the top. Okay, and then we're going to do another one. Now, if this happens to you, I am going to run out of wire before I have done the whole thing. We can get you more wire. I obviously not while you're at home. Get as far as you can, and we will finish the figure at school if necessary. I'm going to finish this here because hopefully your figure will be a little bit smaller than mine is. It'll be more like this, and the amount of wire will fit it a little bit better. Shaping this so that you have some sense of a calf. It doesn't have to be too pronounced, and we can adjust it as we go, but you're getting the sense of this. So back up over the quad. I feel like there's a gap here on his hip, so I'm going to add one loop here just because I can. We're going to complete the rest of the torso. So to complete the torso, we want to go up with more loops, assuming you have enough wire. And once I get to the top, I'm going to loop over a shoulder, and then I'm going to come down at a diagonal and pass under the bottom of the spine, okay? Because what this is going to do is give us that outside edge here. So you're going to go from shoulder all the way down to the center line, and then from the center line go under and back up the other side, and then wrap the shoulder again, and then that really needs to be a tighter loop, and then we have something like an outline for the body, right? Should be good. Then we're going to do the head. So we're going to come around and we're going to go around the neck once. Again, if at any point you run out, it is super easy to do the head from an additional piece of wire. So, like, that's fine. We're then going to wrap around. And again, this is where we want to, right? We want to have some air in there. This is last year's little guy. Make sure that the head is deep enough and round enough so it's not totally flat. You want to have a face. Remember the cross that we were drawing when we were doing gesture drawings? It's kind of like that, right? So we're going to try and get a nice rounded, ooh, I think I might have just 1, 2, 3, 4. Just enough to do this. I'm lucky. Okay, so there's that. So round, 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 up to the top. And then make a little loop at the top. And we're going to come down the front. Right? Boop. More or less. It's not quite like thread, but there we go. So I've got a little bit of a loop at the top holding that on there. Then I'm going to come down the front and around the neck one more time, and then up the back. And then I can come down the front again if I decide I need another loop somewhere. Ooh, I'm going to put this up through here so it helps hold it in. Be careful about how bendy the wire gets while you're working with it. Oh, okay. There we go. Come down here, and then, right, straighten that out as you go. Then I'm going to go around the neck, and if I have anything left, I can just bulk up those shoulders. Bulk up the shoulders just a little bit. And the end wire, like, just tuck it down into the body somewhere so it doesn't stab you or someone else. And you should be fine. And you have a person, okay? If you are sitting there and you have extra time and you want to be a little bit fussy, see what you can do to get the ribs lined up and maybe evenly spaced and oriented in rotation to the spinal column. See how that'll go. You do not want to pose your figure yet. Leave your figure as like little stick man, okay? Stick person, standing neutral person. That way we have the flexibility to do what you need to with your pose without having to pose it and repose it, and you're going to have to get it to school. So, do what you can. See how much wire you've got. I think your black wire will make something a little bit closer to this size. So let's see how that goes. I think you have slightly shorter pieces of wire than I did when I made this one a while back. Okay, give it a shot, and then we will have the figure for posing in class when I see you next.